What's going on, Celtics fans? Welcome into Celtics Today by Chat Sports. We have huge news on not just one, but two players. But I wanted to start off here with Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, everybody's been very concerned on when Porzingis is going to return. What is his rehabbing process looking like? And we got the latest update from the Boston Celtics themselves saying that Kristaps has taken the next step to returning to the basketball court. I mean, my goodness, that's just the best news I have personally heard all year long. But now I'm getting ready. I'm starting to get excited to see what Kristaps Porzingis is doing that can make him ready to play basketball. But before that happens, if you guys are joining our watch party tomorrow, Celtics taking on the surprisingly undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference, we will be live with a watch party. If you guys are joining, do one thing for me, hit that like button. This is what the thumbnail will look like. Just look for this picture, and you guys will be able to join us with a showdown of the Eastern Conference in the Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right, let's go ahead and jump into now what the Boston Celtics had to say concerning the Kristaps Porzingis. They put out this release giving a Kristaps Porzingis injury update saying the Celtics 4 has reached the next phase in his recovery. As part of his rehab plan, Porzingis and the Celtics forward, Xavier Tillman, will be assigned to practice with the Maine Celtics at the Auerbach Center this afternoon. Following this practice, they will be recalled to the Boston Celtics, where Porzingis will continue to ramp up his workload. I know you guys are probably sitting here thinking, Allie, why Xavier Tillman? I think the reasoning for Tillman is that they wanted to give him some kind of professional talent, and I say that with all due respect that the G League is professional talent, but a guy that's actually been playing in the NBA. So Tillman's going to go down, help Kristaps Porzingis play against some contending, play against someone that's been on the Boston Celtics team, and they'll both be back up to the Boston Celtics ahead of tomorrow's game. Of course, Kristaps Porzingis, still no indefinite timeline as to when he is going to return, but the good news is that Porzingis has been getting in his shots, getting in his work while the Boston Celtics have been playing. So as you guys know, ahead of the games at home, Kristaps will put up a couple of shots here, mainly from the three-point line. Not a lot of jumping goes on here with Porzingis. And then, of course, you got some from the free throw line, from the elbow, getting those mid-range jumpers in. So now he's got that 2 out of the 3 level scoring back in his game. And then here's my favorite picture so far, Kristaps Porzingis dunking ahead of the Raptors game this last weekend, just showing that he's still got those hops, just showing that he can still be able to get to the rim if he does need to, which the answer to that is yes, he does need to. He wants to play basketball again, and that's what he's been good at. So we do know that when you've got a player like Kristaps Porzingis that can play at all 3 levels, this is why it's so important for Kristaps to not be rushed back. Do we want him to be back as soon as possible? Absolutely, but this has been a long time coming for Porzingis. In April, he suffered a calf injury versus the Miami Heat, of course, the first round of the NBA playoffs, which sucked. Then in June, he kind of comes back, and then he dislocates his posterior tibialis tendon by himself when he ended up playing against the Dallas Mavericks in, I believe, Game 2 of the NBA Finals. And then after they won the NBA Finals, he went on to have successful surgery. And now they're hoping for a December 2024 or January 2025 start for Kristaps Porzingis to be able to jump back in and get back underway for the Boston Celtics at some point here this season. But we do know there are a couple of metrics he has to hit before that can be possible. We know that his road to recovery somewhat looks like measuring his body, which just sounds a little bit weird, I know. They got to make sure that his legs, his knees, etc. are getting to the place that they want them to be at, and that the muscle groups are balanced. So they're not putting too much pressure on that left leg and really trying to rehab that left side of his body and neglecting the right. They got to make sure that his whole body is now ready to go back to a level of production that he once was at. And then they want to reach certain metrics for muscles. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know exactly what those metrics are, but we do know that Kristaps Porzingis needs to make sure that his body is fully ready to go at every standpoint for anything that can happen in a very physical Boston Celtics basketball game. And last but not least, physical contact. That's what makes this announcement from the Boston Celtics so great, is that he is now, in my opinion, if he's going to go down there and practice with the Maine Celtics, there's going to be physical contact there. I would assume he would possibly scrimmage with the Maine Celtics. I don't know that for certain, obviously, but if I'm going to go down and practice with somebody, I'm assuming they're not going to take it easy on him in the sense that they're not going to guard him and just try to make sure that, he's ready to go back in an NBA game. But I also noticed this. A report did show that black band that has been on Kristaps Porzingis' right arm is actually a technology use of some sort where they measure Porzingis' body. What they're measuring, I'm not exactly sure, but just knowing that this training staff is so well equipped to take care of Kristaps Porzingis and his recovery that they can use things that are well beyond you and I's brain to be able to make sure that, hey, we're not rushing him back too soon. Because I know the Boston Celtics right now do have a winning record, and they look fine. Yeah, they've dropped a couple of games, but, that's basketball. But the number one thing here is I want to make sure they're not rushing Porzingis back. They are literally tracking his progress to make sure he's not coming back too early. And with the way that this is looking, the Celtics do kind of have a pretty tough schedule through December. Of course, you got to play the Cleveland Cavaliers right after tomorrow, again in December. You've got the 76ers, which always adds a little bit of a rivalry there. The Memphis Grizzlies, the Milwaukee Bucks, which you almost lost to. The Chicago Bulls are a pretty good team. The Detroit Pistons, who you almost lost to. The Toronto Raptors, you just took into overtime. The Indiana Pacers, that you just lost. So you will need somebody like Kristaps Porzingis to be able to win, if any, all of these games throughout December. So knowing that he is now kind of ahead of his schedule here, because you have to remember, Porzingis was set to return around the Christmas time. Well, if it's November 18th and he's already headed back to Maine to start practicing, I would assume that he's going to be back before the next month. That's just my assumption, because it seems like his progress is ramping up at a really good level right now. So I think this is, if anything, I just think this is a really good sign that Kristaps Porzingis' recovery is going well, that he can return sooner rather than later, and hopefully be back to his full self. But before we jump into the second half of this video, I just want to ask you guys this. If you want Kristaps Porzingis back, it's super easy. All you guys have to do to show me that you do want Kristaps Porzingis back is just go on ahead and like this video for me. Give him some love. You never know if he ends up on YouTube. I want to see how much love that the Celtics Nation can give him. So go on ahead and hit that thumbs up button for me. Let me tell you guys real quick about our sponsor here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I want to talk about Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in America. I play Prize Picks every single game day, and here's a few reasons why you guys should too. Number one, it's just super easy. It's honestly the easiest part of my day. All you guys have to do is just pick more or less on a player's projected stats, and you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Not to mention, you guys can also play in over 30 different states, including California, Florida, Texas, and Georgia. So if you guys do want a little sneak peek as to what my Prize Picks do look like here, I love crossover season, so I love mixing in different sports, different players, collegiate and professional. But I do have Joe Mixon to have more than 90 rushing yards, and I've got Steph Curry to have more than 25 points as well. Like I said, I always like to pick the more. That's just how I play. But of course, you guys can go on ahead and pick more or less. If you guys download Prize Picks right now, use code CLNS. This will give you guys $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Download the Prize Picks app. Use promo code CLNS. This will get you guys $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Now let's talk about Jrue Holiday's injury update. We know Jrue Holiday did sit out this past weekend playing up against the Toronto Raptors, but we did receive some pretty good news here from Joe Mazzulla himself that this should be okay. This really isn't anything to worry about just yet, but the report came out that Joe Mazzulla says Jrue Holiday, who missed Saturday's win against the Raptors due to a left knee tendinopathy, I'm guessing something with the tendon in his knee. I'm not a doctor. I talk sports. Is good to go for tomorrow's game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's huge because we will need a full roster, minus Kristaps Porzingis, to be ready to go against the undefeated Cleveland Cavs. And I do believe we will be able to take on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I do believe we will be able to win this ball game, but it is certainly not going to be easy. And so that's why if you've got a player like Jrue Holiday guarding that perimeter around Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, it's going to help. And one thing to note here is that this was supposedly a precautionary sit-out against the Raptors. So this doesn't sound like a Jrue Holiday injury is supposed to linger like a Browns did, like a Hausers did. It may just be one of those things when you're playing, let's say, the Wizards on Friday. Maybe Holiday doesn't play just because he's got that lingering issue going on right now. But just like Kristaps Porzingis, Jrue Holiday, you can't really take him out of the game fully. And we do see that Holiday over the weekend in practice was putting up some shots here. You can see working on his mid-range jumper there from the post. He was also seen shooting some three-pointers as well. So he's still working. He's still doing pretty good here in terms of that injury, but let's talk about his level of play, because I can't be the only one that has watched Jrue Holiday play this season and just think, it doesn't look like he's off to a great start. And that's okay. Holiday is a phenomenal two-way player in the sense that where his offense sometimes lacks, he makes up for it in defense. I'm not saying sound the alarm. I'm not saying that Jrue Holiday sucks. I'm not saying any of that. But I have noticed the offensive level of production hasn't been as stellar as we are used to seeing here, and maybe we've just been spoiled, and that can absolutely happen, or maybe Jrue Holiday has been dealing with that knee injury that's been undisclosed for a little while now, but so far, his assists, 4 points per game, about 13 points, and normally he's a 15 to 16 points per game, but he did average around that 12 points per game last year, so I get it. The field goal percentage is good. The three-point percentage is also very good, but it just feels like Holiday's shot isn't there. When he's going 0 for 6 from downtown in a must-win game for the Atlanta Hawks, or you see Peyton Pritchard now in the closing lineup against a team that they're down against, like the Bucks, like the Pistons, like the Raptors, because Holiday can't seem to stop turning over, stop not making his shots. So it is one of those things of, I want to keep an eye on it here. I'm definitely not going to sound the alarm on it just yet, because I do believe that he is okay and there's nothing to be concerned about. But now knowing that he has been dealing with that knee injury, it's starting to make me think if these two things are correlating, whether Jrue Holiday's shots not falling, maybe whether his defense is getting cooked down the perimeter. You need somebody like Peyton Pritchard in there. So definitely something to monitor moving forward. But overall, I just think Jrue Holiday needed just a minute to sit on the bench and just watch from afar and just get his body right. That way, you're not really pushing him as hard if you don't need to in a not so needed must-win game in the regular season. All right, this has been your injury update on Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. If you guys want all the latest injury updates and anything moving forward, especially since we will be live tomorrow for the Cleveland Cavaliers game, it's super easy. All you guys have to do is hit that sub button for me.